The night the story broke felt like any other evening in a dimly lit London pub. It's the kind of place where the clink of pint glasses and the low murmur of conversation blend into a comforting hum that has soothed weary travelers for centuries. But on this particular Thursday, the atmosphere was about to shift dramatically as a man whose name has become a lightning rod in American politics stepped through the heavy wooden door. His shoulders squared, its expression a mixture of curiosity and the practiced confidence of someone who has spent years navigating the glare of the public eye. J.D. Vance, the newly elected senator from Ohio, author of the best-selling memoir Hillbilly, Elegy and a rising star in the Republican Party, had been invited to the United Kingdom as part of a diplomatic delegation aimed at strengthening transatlantic ties. A trip that included meetings with British lawmakers, think tank leaders, and a handful of cultural stops designed to showcase the softer side of a politician often portrayed in the U.S. media as a hardline conservative. And the invitation to the historic pub in the heart of Camden was meant to be a low-key gesture. A chance for Vance to experience the quintessential British tradition of sharing a pint with locals. To let his guard down and perhaps find common ground over a frothy amber ale. But as he entered the low-ceilinged room filled with the scent of malt and the faint echo of a folk tune playing on an old jukebox, a few regulars glanced up, their eyes flickering between recognition and surprise. For the news of his recent election had traveled faster than the speed of a London tube train. And within moments, a hushed ripple spread through the crowd, the kind of ripple that can turn a simple evening into a stage for a political drama. And Vance, ever the performer, offered a warm smile, raised his hand in a friendly wave, and made his way to the bar, his entourage trailing behind, the polished leather of his shoes catching the amber glow of the low lamps, while the bartender, a middle-aged man with a thick Irish accent, greeted him with a practiced evening, "Sir," and asked what he'd like. And Vance, perhaps trying to bridge the cultural gap, ordered a classic British stout, a nod to the local tradition. And as the bartender pulled the tap, a murmur of conversation began to rise. A low tide of speculation that soon turned into a full-blown wave when a young woman at a nearby table, her phone already out, whispered to her friend, "Is that J.D. Vance, the guy who's been pushing those anti-immigration bills?" And the friend, eyes widening, replied, "Yeah. The one who's been talking about American values and border security." The words, though spoken in hushed tones, carried the weight of a nation's polarized debate. And in that instant, the pub, a place that had seen centuries of political discourse, became a microcosm of the larger cultural clash that has defined the past few years. And as the bartender placed the dark, creamy pint in front of Vance, a man at the far end of the bar, a regular known for his outspoken opinions on Brexit and immigration, rose from his stool, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Excuse me, sir, but we don't serve your kind here," he said, the words hanging in the air like a gauntlet. And Vance, taken aback but not entirely surprised by the hostility, responded calmly, "I'm just here for a drink, not looking for trouble." A statement that seemed to diffuse the tension for a heartbeat. But the moment had already been captured by the ever-watchful eyes of a smartphone, the screen flashing a notification that would soon ignite a firestorm across the Atlantic. For within seconds, the video of the exchange was uploaded to Twitter, the caption reading, "U.S. Senator gets kicked out of UK pub for his politics. Is this free speech or a public shaming?" And the clip, with its raw, unfiltered audio, quickly amassed hundreds of thousands of views, the comment section exploding with a chorus of reactions that ranged from amused disbelief, "Wow, this is the most British thing I've ever seen," to fierce condemnation. "This is harassment, not hospitality." And the hashtag #VancePubgate began to trend, a digital echo that reverberated far beyond the walls of the Camden establishment. And as the night wore on, the pub's owner, a man named Tom Whitaker, who had inherited the establishment from his father, found himself at the center of an unexpected crisis. For while he had not intended to single out any patron, The spontaneous decision of his regular to confront Vance had sparked a debate about the role of private businesses in political discourse. And Tom, a man who had spent his life serving locals and tourists alike, posted an apology on the pub's Facebook page stating, "We regret any misunderstanding that occurred last night. Our intention was never to discriminate, but to maintain a welcoming environment for all." A statement that was met with a mixture of support and scorn. The latter coming from a wave of online trolls who seized the opportunity to mock both the senator and the pub, and the trolling was merciless. A relentless barrage of memes that placed Vance's face on the iconic "Keep Calm and Carry On" poster. Captions that read, "When you try to enjoy a pint but your politics get you. Booted." And even a deepfake video that edited the original clip to make it appear as though Vance had shouted a profanity before being escorted out. A piece of digital manipulation that spread like wildfire, prompting fact-checkers to scramble to debunk the false audio, yet the damage was already done. The narrative had shifted from a simple misunderstanding to a full-blown cultural showdown. And the next morning, the headlines were everywhere, from the BBC's front page that read, "U.S. Senator ejected from London pub, a symbol of growing transatlantic tensions," to Fox News banner proclaiming, "Vance victim of UK cancel culture." And the story quickly became a talking point on both sides of the Atlantic, with commentators dissecting every nuance. Some arguing that the pub's staff had the right to refuse service to anyone whose presence threatened the peace of their establishment, invoking the UK's Equality Act, while others countered that the refusal was a thinly veiled act of political discrimination, pointing to the fact that Vance had not broken any law, had not been intoxicated, and had simply ordered a drink, the crux of the debate centering on whether a private venue could or should deny service based on a patron's political beliefs, a question that has haunted democracies for decades. And as the media frenzy intensified, Vance's own office released a measured statement, emphasizing that the senator was merely seeking a moment of cultural exchange and was surprised by the abrupt removal, and that the incident underscores the importance of civil discourse and mutual respect, even when opinions differ. A line that seemed designed to calm the storm while also positioning him as a victim of intolerance. A narrative that resonated with his base, who flooded social media with messages of solidarity. Images of Vance holding a pint with the caption, "Stand with JD," and calls for a boycott of the pub. While on the other side, British commentators rallied to defend the establishment's right to set its own standards, with a popular columnist writing, "If a politician's presence makes patrons uncomfortable, the owner is within his rights to protect his clientele." A sentiment that found echo among many who felt that the United Kingdom should not be forced to accommodate every foreign political figure, especially those whose policies they view as antithetical to British values. And the trolling, however, did not stop at memes. It escalated into coordinated harassment campaigns, with anonymous accounts creating fake Twitter profiles that pretended to be Vance's supporters, flooding the pub's social media with praise and threats of legal action, while other accounts, posing as British citizens, posted scathing reviews on TripAdvisor, rating the establishment 1 star, and writing, "Avoid at all costs. They kicked out a U.S. senator for no reason," a tactic that threatened the pub's livelihood, and the owner, Tom, found himself receiving a deluge of emails from both angry patrons demanding an apology and from legal advisors warning of potential defamation suits, a pressure cooker that forced him to consider whether to stand firm on his decision or to issue a more comprehensive apology, a dilemma that highlighted the precarious balance between free speech, private property rights, and the ever-growing influence of online mob mentality. And as the days turned into a week, the story took on new layers, with a leaked internal memo from the UK Conservative Party suggesting that the incident could be used as a political weapon against the Labour opposition, who had been critical of the government's handling of immigration, a revelation that added a geopolitical dimension to what had initially seemed like a local dispute. And the memo, obtained by a British newspaper, indicated that senior officials were discussing how to frame the incident as evidence of American interference in British domestic affairs, a narrative that would appeal to voters concerned about sovereignty. While across the Atlantic, Vance's political opponents seized the moment to question his judgment, with a Senate colleague tweeting, "If you can't handle a night out in a British pub, how will you handle the complexities of foreign policy?" A jab that quickly went viral, further entrenching the story in the partisan battleground. And amidst the swirling controversy, a surprising voice emerged from the crowd. That of a veteran journalist who had covered both American and British politics for decades, who wrote an op-ed in The Guardian titled, "The Real Lesson of the Vance Pub Incident," arguing that the episode was less about the individual and more about the erosion of civility in public discourse. Noting that when a simple exchange over a drink becomes a headline, we must ask ourselves whether we have lost the ability to engage with opposing viewpoints without resorting to shaming or exclusion. A perspective that resonated with readers fatigued by constant outrage, and the op-ed sparked a series of televised debates, with panelists on both sides acknowledging that the incident had exposed a deeper cultural rift. A clash between a United States that has increasingly politicized everyday interactions and a United Kingdom that, while also polarized, still clings to a tradition of separating the personal from the political in public spaces, a tension that was evident in the way many British viewers reacted. Some expressing empathy for the pub owner's desire to protect his patrons, others condemning the act as a violation of the principle that the public house is a place for all, a sentiment that has been echoed in British folklore for centuries. And as the story reached its 2-week mark, the legal ramifications began to surface, with Vance's legal team filing a formal complaint with the UK's Equality and Human Rights Commission, alleging that the refusal of service constituted discrimination based on political belief, a protected characteristic under certain interpretations of the law. While the pub's defense leaned on the argument that the decision was made on the basis of maintaining public order, it's a justification that has been upheld in previous cases where patrons were removed for disruptive behavior, a legal gray area that would likely be tested in the courts, and the prospect of a courtroom showdown added another layer of intrigue, drawing the attention of law students, civil liberties groups, and political analysts who began to speculate on the potential precedent such a case could set for future interactions between foreign dignitaries and private establishments. A scenario that, until now, had existed mostly in the realm of hypothetical discussions, and while the legal battle loomed, the human element of the story remained front and center. As Vance, in a candid interview with a major U.S. network, opened up about the personal impact of the incident, describing how this sudden wave of trolling had taken a toll on his family, how his teenage son, who had been on a school trip in London, at the time had been inundated with messages from peers asking why his father was being so rude, and how the experience forced him to confront the reality that his public persona, built on a narrative of resilience and hard-won success, could also become a target for vitriol in the most unexpected of settings, a revelation that humanized a figure often seen only through the lens of policy and politics. And his interview concluded with a call for more empathy, less instant judgment, a plea that seemed to echo the broader sentiment that had begun to surface among some commentators, a desire to move beyond the spectacle and toward a more nuanced conversation about how we treat public figures when they step into ordinary spaces. And as the weeks turned into a month, the intensity of the online trolling began to wane. The memes gave way to more measured analysis, and the pub, once the epicenter of a transatlantic controversy, returned to its regular rhythm, its patrons ordering pints, the jukebox playing familiar tunes, and the owner, Tom, posting a final note on his establishment's website, thanking the community for its support and stating, We stand by our commitment to welcome all who respect the spirit of this house. Okay. A line that, while perhaps intended to close the chapter, also left room for reflection on the delicate balance between hospitality and principle, and the story of J.D. Vance's ejection from a UK pub, a tale that began with a simple request for a drink, evolved into a viral sensation, a platform for political trolling, a legal debate, and a cultural mirror, now serves as a reminder that in an age where every moment can be captured, amplified, and weaponized, the line between private interaction and public spectacle is thinner than ever. That the symbols we use, whether a pint glass, a flag, or a social media hashtag, carry weight far beyond their immediate context. And that the true measure of a society may be found not in how loudly it shouts its grievances, but in how it chooses to listen, to engage, and to extend a hand across the bar, even when the person on the other side holds a different set of beliefs. A lesson that, if taken to heart, could transform a night that began with a clash into an opportunity for deeper understanding. And perhaps in the quiet moments after the last call, when the lights dim and the empty chairs bear witness to the night's drama, both Vance and the patrons of that Camden pub will walk away with a story that will be retold, dissected, and eventually softened by time. A story that reminds us that even the most powerful among us can be humbled by a simple pint, and that sometimes the most profound political commentary comes not from speeches on grand stages, but from the quiet hum of a London pub where a senator learned that the world watches even the smallest gestures, and that in that awareness lies both the danger of ridicule and the promise of connection.